Hello everyone, hope you all are doing good. So today it's going to be lens stock day. Fujifilm not only makes one, but many amazing primes for their APS-C bodies. From the stellar 56mm 1.2 or the near perfect 16mm 1.4 lens, or their ever reliable f2 series of lenses, the 90, 50, 35 or the 23, or even the newer 2.8 aperture lenses or the 80mm macro beast. So apart from outstanding optical quality of their lenses, each one of them has a unique character. The way they handle the colors, the tonality of the images they produce, the micro contrast, the sharpness, and so on and so forth. So in today's video, I would like to share my thoughts on my all-time favorite Fuji lens, the XF 35mm f1.4. Long story short, this lens is nothing short of spectacular. And yes, I agree to the zillion reviews that have come out before me. This lens is truly magical. So if this is your first time stopping by my channel, I am Ansar, and in this channel I talk about my street photography experiences and some of the gears that I use. So if you like such content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, as it really helps. So now let's move to the review of the 35mm lens. First, I would like to talk about the lens build and the handling. The 35mm f1.4 has a field of view in full frame equivalent to 53mm, so it has 8 elements in 6 groups and 7 diaphragm blades. It opens up to aperture range of 1.4 all the way to f16. The nice thing about XF lenses is that there is an aperture ring which is usually marked, and it's easy to look at the lens and change the aperture. I really like this implementation by Fujifilm. The lens has a fantastic metal build, and it comes with a nice but rather flimsy metal hood, and it also comes with a cap that kind of keeps falling off most of the time. The lens just comes in around 187 grams, and it just makes it a perfect carry around lens. The lens is not weather sealed and also has a much dated AF motor system. So why do I like this lens? The 35mm or the 50mm in full frame terms is not an everyday focal length for documentary or street photography. But what I found is working more with this focal length is it allows you to make some unique perspectives and make some very nice shots. It allows you to explore photography in a very much unique way. It is exceptionally good if you are making portraits. The lightweight of the lens clubbed with the excellent balance on the Fujifilm bodies makes it an ideal carry around lens for me, and this lens kind of remains 95% of the time on my X-T3. This camera lens combination is ideal for taking candid street photography shots, and one good thing is you are not very far away from the subject, so you don't lose the intimacy, and you also are able to fill the frame where you are not too far like big telephoto lenses where you are much far away from the subject, so you are much closer to the subject. And as I said that this lens is pretty small and compact, I rather go unnoticed on the street when I'm having this lens on my X-T3. This lens, as I told you, this focal length is not ideal for everyone. What this lens has forced me to do is move around, work my scene a much better way, and come up with some creative compositions. If you look at the price of this lens, this comes in around 100 euros more than the 35mm f2 lens. So the $1,000,000 question is, why should anyone get this lens over the 35mm f2? I would say the money you spend on the f1.4 lens is worth every cent. I have owned this lens before. I sold it and I did regret selling it for a very long time. So believe me, I have the 35mm f2, but I really like this lens. So I was again looking for this lens in the used market, and I saw someone was offloading this lens for around 280 euros, which was a no-brainer. I just went in and I took this deal. It's a steal, I would say. So you might be asking, why did I prefer this lens over the 35mm f2? So image quality is one of the biggest reasons why I kept coming back to the 35mm 1.4 lens. The extra 100 euros you pay, you get a pretty light lens. The image quality is just super stellar, and the f1.4, along with the excellent sharpness across the apertures, or you get a 3D pop of images when shooting at f1.4. And why everyone calls this a magic lens? I think because of the image quality it produces at f1.4 is just super stellar, and it's very hard to explain or describe. When I first saw the images that this lens could produce and I compared it with my 35mm f2 lens, it's no competition. It just blows it out of the water. So how about the autofocus performance, you may ask? The autofocus is not that bad. I generally use continuous or single point autofocus. I generally use continuous autofocus mode on my X-T3, and with the newer firmwares on the X-T3, and even I've tried it on my X-T4 before, and I have no problems taking photographs, and the autofocus I find is pretty snappy. For video work I would not recommend this lens because I find the 35mm f2 is much more silent and has a much more better autofocus tracking capability compared to the 35mm f1.4. but you have to give this 35mm 1.4 lens a break. It's close to a 10-year-old lens. So it was announced sometime in September 2011 when I think it came out with the X Pro 1. So come September 2021, this is going to be like close to 10 years. And I also saw that I also read on the rumor sites that Fuji is working on releasing a 33mm f1.4 lens soon. I'm pretty sure that the newer 33mm 1.4 lens that will come out will have weather sealing, will have the latest and greatest autofocus system. So that time this 35mm 1.4 lens will become even cheaper. So anyone who is getting into the Fujifilm system, I would strongly recommend them to take a look at the 18 to 55mm lens. That should be the starter lens. That's a no-brainer. After that, if you want to look for a second lens where you want to explore some other facets of photography like portraits or some intimate street photography, or trying to take some street portraits, I will strongly recommend you guys to take a look at the 35mm f1.4 lens. I'm sure you'll be blown away by the images. So as I mentioned in the intro section, the character of the images is what defines this lens. So that's about it in this video, and if you enjoyed watching this, then hit that like button and do consider subscribing to my channel, and I hope to upload more regular content on this channel. Until the next one, take care and ciao ciao.